George Floyd. On May 25th, 2020, another unarmed black man was murdered senselessly at the mercy of a Minneapolis police officer. The city had slowly been emerging from a serious lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but as soon as that video went viral, the city began to rumble. Peaceful protests were ransacked by people with other agendas. The next days were a smoky haze. Businesses, homes, cars, and grief burned through the streets. I watched the footage of reporters saying, "I have never seen anything like this in my life." I'm currently writing this from my home office in Al Khobar, Saudi Arabia. As I write these words, I in no way mean to turn this conversation into a pity story for me. I admit that I will never be unwoke enough for silent racists or woke enough for the anti-racists. I've walked my life awake to different realities that make my existence unsafe. So, as I pen this honest examination of the evil that runs through my own veins, I ask for grace. It will not be easy to extend or easy to defend, but I must acknowledge my chips and moves in this game. As a Mexican-American daughter of immigrants, I grew up hearing the language of deportations. My church had many families torn apart due to laws that were part of a faulty and broken system. At the young age of 11, I stood outside the corner of Diagonal and Clary Street in my small town of Worthington, Minnesota, to protest the ICE raids that had shaken up my community. There were no crowds, no loud chants, just me and a couple other kids with our handmade posters. I think 3 cars drove by that day. One honked in agreement. The others didn't even notice us. Because of this experience of worrying that my favorite uncles could not come home from the dairy farm on any day, I too feared the men in uniform. I thought I was immune to the disease of racism. But racism is not like a virus. It is not something you can protect yourself from or catch once, recover, and never have again. It is taught, it is enforced, it is embedded and disguised every day in America. It is in my blood. I fought it. I tried to ignore it. I tried to justify it. I tried to mask it as patriotism. I've cried real and fake tears when I watch videos of oppression during the civil rights movement. But nothing can hide the fact that when my cousin asked me if I wanted to go to the Cub Foods on Broadway Street, I hesitated. The Cub Foods was in North Minneapolis, the place known for being predominantly black and underserved. I never locked my car when I went to college in Roseville, Minnesota. But at that Cub Food parking lot, I locked my car and even prayed an extra prayer. When I graduated college, I moved my mom to Robbinsdale, Minnesota, a 15-minute drive from that Cub Foods. The closest shopping centers are in the next suburbs of Brooklyn Center and Crystal, both diverse communities with big stores like Walmart and small businesses like La Loma Bonita. I remember telling my mom to avoid the Walmart in Brooklyn Center. I would rather have her drive 15 minutes north to Brooklyn Park. Less black people there. I cannot deny that if you have made it this far, you might be seething with anger. I accept that. I can no longer allow myself to stand behind my Latinidad as a shield for my racist behaviors. I must bear my sins fully and sit with the pain that I have perpetuated. I moved to Saudi Arabia to chase some dreams and to run from my demons. But racism is everywhere. It flows through my veins. It takes many different faces. It manifests in awkward looks and mumbled angry rants against incompetent Filipino workers at the restaurants. It caused me to be blind to the fact that the workers sweeping the streets in 105-degree weather are always the darker-skinned residents. I wanted to ignore the fact that I had become comfortable with my privilege. Here, they don't care that I'm Mexican-American, as long as I have a blue passport. For too long, I have sat in silence. I have watched fires of anger at the death of countless black men, women, and children snuff out due to inaction and lack of justice. I have felt like being in a straitjacket. I have no right to demand anything. I have no platform or influence to pierce the system. But I am the problem. I am the silent bystander paralyzed by fear. So as people post hate towards the silent majority, I cower more. I am the problem. I have seen the term anti-racist being touted as the way to take a stand. But does anti-racist mean anti-sexist, anti-homophobic, anti-capitalist? The work of unmasking years of racist foundations of institutions or organizations cannot be done in a few nights of protests, and yet I find myself unable to imagine more of the same. There is a humanity that still lives within me that is raging. The urgency burns within me to unmask the liar that I have been. I must be freed from this poison that courses through my veins. So, I am committing to the work. I have always been willing to learn. It is one of my gifts, as undeserving as I am. I have naively believed in the system, even though the system wasn't made for me. The journey ahead is smoky and filled with tear gas. I think I will cry many tears of repentance and will spend many nights alone with God. Reconciliation did not come without a cost. A lesson I learned through this Jewish rabbi that broke away from traditions and customs. I am far away from the action tonight, but I am putting a stake in the ground, drawing a line in the sand, bearing my ugliness to the world. There is no more time for people like me to cower in fear. This is not about me, but the system is upheld by people like me. It's not about me, but it needs to start with me. I commit to study the art of conversation, of listening with real heart, of pushing past the critics that say it will never be enough. I commit to calling out the racism in my Hispanic immigrant community. I will take on the mantle of anti-racism, knowing that the movement is not just about police, but an entire system built on the backs of black slaves. But also knowing that I might not be accepted after what I've done. With this, I am hoping to bleed out the racism behind my mask. So, what's hiding behind your mask?